And we're live. What's going on, guys? We are back with the interview series, and this is one that Mega's been looking forward to.
I am pumped on this. So we have the founders of Serenity Kids, and you guys have seen us feed these pouches to Theo. We actually ran out of all the meat ones except salmon. That's his least favorite, but we'll talk about that. But I found this company from Lily Nichols, who we love to reference because she's all children, everything. But we figured we'd have Joe and Serenity on so we can chat about child nutrition, since that's like consuming our life right now.
Yep, and a lot of you guys ask, is this sponsored? You think we're shilling for companies. No, I think we do have a discount code though.
We do.
But it is not sponsored. We're interviewing these people because they created this company, I guess out of their own self-interest of like coming up with some better baby food options.
Yeah.
So here they are, Joe and Serenity. How's it going?
We're great. How are you guys?
Hello.
Doing good. So yeah, talk to us about the origin story of Serenity Kids. I would imagine it went something like you guys had a kid and then had to figure out what to feed it.
Vice versa. Flip those around.
Oh.
So I was we were both sick kids when we were little. You know, I ate pretty much crackers, chips, donuts, just junk. I mean, trash food. And it took its toll. I was sick a lot as a little kid. I had my first ear infection when I was 2 weeks old, and just repeat, several times a year, lots of antibiotics, which hurt my gut health. Now we know that, then we didn't. And so I really struggled with digestive health all through my 20s. In my early 30s, I decided to make a change and stop taking all that medicine and switch my diet. So I read Rob Wolf's book, The Paleo Solution, Mark Sisson's book, Primal Blueprint, and was sold. So I tried it. I eat primarily paleo-ish with lots of veggies, ethically sourced meats, some fruits and some nuts on top of that pyramid. And I'm the healthiest I've ever been at 43 years old.
So going in, what was it about those books that really resonated with you? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that will read those and they'll just like completely dismiss it. Were you already health conscious to begin? I
was, and my dad had been, my dad ate wheat germ and yogurt in the early 80s. He was a marathoner, and so he'd always been interested in nutrition. He was the very first vegetarian my mom had ever heard of when they met when they were 18. Because he wanted to, be as healthy as possible. And so I kind of have a nutrition, bent underneath me in my family. But really what sold me on those, one, I was desperate. My doctor gave me a pill to take every day for the rest of my life. And I didn't like being constrained to that model of health.
What was the pill?
Yeah,
Right?
What was it?
Oh, it was a proton pump inhibitor for severe heartburn.
Okay.
And I'd been diagnosed with irritable bowel disease and all this other stuff, which is basically like, we don't really know what's wrong with you. You have a crappy quality of life, but we're not going to treat it because we don't really know how. And of course, diet wasn't a part of any of that, back when I was first diagnosed at 19. And I had colic as a baby, just kind of, I tend towards digestive distress in my physique and my body. But really what sold me on those two books was that I had been an anthropology major as my first major in undergrad. And I loved the idea of studying ancient peoples and how they lived and how that could apply to today and how we do things differently. And so really it just took the introduction of Rob Wolf's book, actually, the first 10 pages, if you've ever read it, it sold me. And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I mean, I can either take this pill forever and still feel crappy, frankly, or I can try something different. And my dad had been paleo for a year by this point. And I thought, that sounded so dumb. Eat like a caveman? I mean, come on. I was like embarrassed. We'd go out to eat and he'd order weird things that, of course, I order now, And I'm like, Dad, how long are you going to do this stupid diet? Because he was always trying something different. And he's like, I don't know, forever. I'm like,
Yeah.
But he was right. He was totally right. And I had let that book sit on my shelf for about a year without reading it. And then I had called him up one day because I didn't want to take this pill every day. And he's like, you should read that book I gave you for Christmas. I'm like, what book? I don't remember him. I put him on my shelf. Like, I don't read them. But this one really changed my life.
Awesome. So, and when it comes to the Serenity Kids, you said this came before the baby. So were you pregnant and then you were like, oh shit, we got to do this? Or
Even
were you...
earlier.
Okay.
Earlier.
You know, I've always wanted kids.
And I never did.
I had a very difficult childhood. I'm autistic and wasn't diagnosed as a kid. They called me ADHD because I was super intense energy, really wild all the time. But ADHD wasn't accurate, so that didn't help. And I was bullied a lot and in trouble a lot, and just a lot of kind of trauma from being a kid. And so it set me forth on this mission to make the world better for kids, and always made me want to have a kid. I've always wanted to be like, I want to have my own children. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to have a kid and let them be their free, awesome self. And so when Serenity and I got serious, the first thing I wanted was a baby. Like, it was actually even before we got married. She doesn't like telling people this, but we weren't even married, but we were like, well, she had been married before. She didn't really want to get married. And I was like, I actually don't care too much about marriage. I just want a baby. So, and she's like, so I convinced her that we should try to get pregnant. So we had started in that kind of family planning process. And because food was so important to us, as part of integrating my autism, food and diets played a huge role. And, I fell in love with the paleo diet at the same time I fell in love with Serenity. She introduced it to me. And to answer your question, for me, it was about optimization. I was like, I want to be my most awesome self and like have the most energy and the most power, as well as being autistic. Like, I am very sensitive to toxins or inflammation, and I already knew that. So I'm like, best to take out all the stuff that is inflammatory or potentially useless and pack my body full of the most optimal nutrition so that I can be my best self. And to me, paleo is like that raw, wild human diet. And I've always felt pretty wild anyway. So I'm like, might as well be the wild food. And so food was important. So we were at Paleo FX
in 2016. So 4 years ago now. And we started talking about starting a family someday, and I started kind of getting fuzzy and maternal. And I'm like, Joe, let's go find the baby stuff, like baby paleo stuff. Let's see what it's like. And there was nothing. And I thought, well,
there's still not a lot, right?
Yeah.
Even today.
Yeah. And so I went to the CEO of the conference because I had worked for them. They're here in Austin. We're in Austin, Texas. And I said, Michelle, where's the baby stuff? And she said, I ask myself that question every year. And I've actually considered starting a paleo baby food company. And I was like, surely someone is doing it. So I did tons of research. I love the grocery store. I'm in the right business. I started looking at other countries. I started, asking lots of people, what else is there? And really, I was shocked that it wasn't already there. And I talked to a lot of people and they were shocked too. They thought this doesn't already exist, and it didn't. And so that was the summer of 2016. We launched the company that fall as an LLC, Serenity Kids. And we ended up doing some R&D. Took us a while to actually make the product because we're making kind of a high fat, higher protein, lower carb puree on equipment designed for fruit purees. And so some of the processes had to be calibrated for our product, and it took us a while to figure that out. But we ended up launching our first two products, our chicken and our beef, on August 5th, 2018, which was the same day our daughter was born.
Wow.
That's exciting. So was Joe Kids an option for a name?
We considered it, but it wasn't quite as poetic as Joe Kids.
I tried. I was
tried.
outvoted. So Serenity Kids it was.
Yeah, this is great. So, we've been browsing. Every time we go to Whole Foods or a different grocery store, we look for stuff that could potentially be suitable for Theo, who is almost a year old now.
Yeah.
And the main thing we were looking for, we pretty much cook most stuff at home.
Yeah.
But, having stuff like this, these pouches, is nice for on the go.
Yeah.
And, the other night we went to Mega's brother's house and we got Chipotle and, we gave him some chicken, but then we also gave him one of these.
Yeah.
But, I was looking for some puffs because, it's good to have the kids working on their pincer grip when they're 6 months old. And we found one. We found Buddha Bowl something, right?
They're not for babies. They're for adults.
Yeah, they're for adults. But
they're paleo puffs.
I feel like you could get into that market. That should be the next move if you're just looking for business advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are definitely committed to, growing the brand with our baby. And, she's now 2. So like you, she's wanting finger food. So we're definitely in the process of some products like that. So stay tuned.
So looking at the pouches in store, though, we were just at a store yesterday, and the chicken, all of the meat ones, because I did find meat ones, they had oats or like some sort of like grain as the base. And so why do you think that is, as opposed to like you can just do something like you guys have here, which is like meat, fats, and some veggies, and still get like a good balanced pouch for a baby?
But let me tell you this, what we found on the baby. We hired a VA to put all the baby food pouches, we only looked at organic. We put all the organic baby food pouches in a spreadsheet, 245 products, all the ingredients, everything, to like look at them. And the stats were quite scary. They had an average of 9 grams of sugar per pouch. Some of them had as much as 20 grams of sugar. So this 9 grams of sugar doesn't sound like a lot, but for a 15-pound baby, 150-pound adult, that's 90 grams of sugar. And babies are eating 2-3 of these a day. Less than 4% contained meat, so almost no meat on the aisle. All, like you're saying, all of that 4% also contained some kind of grain or legume,
dairy,
or that was like not stuff that we would want to feed our baby, and it's just low nutrition. Almost no fat. Less than 1% had 2 grams or more of fat. So essentially 0 fat on the aisle, and babies need 30 grams of fat a day, according to the USDA, probably more. Fat, is the building blocks of the brain, and their brains are, quadrupling in size constantly. So I'm exaggerating, but they're growing really fast. Huge brains. And so, but there's no fat. So a lot of that is money. Like it's very cheap to make fruit purees. Fruit is cheap. The hot fill processing that you can use to make a shelf stable product that's high acid that has fruit is really cheap. They had just gotten really good margins on these $1.50 to $2 a pouch organic fruit purees. And then when they tried to make meat ones, they wanted to try to bring the cost down. So they filled them up with rice or legumes or other really cheap ingredients. They probably also might think they're nutritious. Like they might, in their mindset, think, meat and grain is a meal, which we know that is not actually a good meal. But one thing that it really did was make it taste bad, because if you mix meat and grain with no salt and no fat, you end up with a really bland flavor that just is gross. The babies just don't like. And so they didn't sell well because they were gross, plus they cost them more. So they end up just not really getting made very much, because they're like, well, we tried to make meat and it didn't sell. So
we talked to them at trade shows.
Yeah, we asked them this question, and they said, well, the meat pouches just don't sell. So people clearly don't want meat.
And and I'm like, if you mix quinoa and chicken and pears and carrots, like I might not want to eat that either.
Right.
Right.
So it's like without sugar, they didn't know how to make a good tasting baby food. So our secret really was really good sourcing, because none of their meat was well sourced either. It was all the cheapest stuff.
And taste matters. Taste is really actually very important. The higher quality of meat, the better it tastes.
And the fat is a really key piece to the flavor, and the experience of eating it. Babies really enjoy the having the fattier cuts of beef, as we all know, tastes better, the fattier chicken thigh. And then just really a lot of attention on combinations of veggies and meats to blend well together. Serenity and I both love to cook, and so we just made batch after batch in the kitchen, tasted them ourselves, tested them on babies, and put a lot of attention on really good flavor, which you don't have to do if you're using fruit. You throw blueberries in something, it's gonna taste good. It tastes like blueberries. You have to know how to spice. You have to know how to combine. And I think that's what really worked for us.
And I think something to mention too is that during my summer of nerddom, my summer of 2016, when we were kind of deciding whether we were going to try to launch this company, if we, we're even going to stay together, like we weren't married by that point. We're starting this big company. And my summer of nerddom, about a month in, I realized, it's a huge aha moment. There already is a perfect baby food out there that we should just emulate, and it's mother's milk. So I started doing a lot of breast milk research. I dragged Joe to the milk bank here in Austin to learn even more about it and figure out where to find out information. And really we tried to closely follow the macronutrient profile of breast milk, at least in that, the calories from breast milk are about half fat, half carbs with a little bit of protein. And our pouches have a little bit more protein than that, because we knew that if you looked at the rest of the aisle, if parents were shopping from the rest of the aisle, then their babies were not getting as much protein as they probably need if they're not eating supplemental meats or anything like that. So we wanted to give a little bit of a protein boost for that.
Awesome. And then someone in chat is asking about sodium content in baby food. That seems to be kind of a hot topic. I noticed all of yours are quite low in sodium.
They are, and they didn't used to be. We started out, so we are, I mean, personally, my personal nutrition philosophy is that processed salt is not the same food as salts found in nature. It's a different compound. I mean, it has the same taste profile, but it can be inflammatory, just like processed foods, right? It can be inflammatory and can cause all different kinds of hormonal responses. And so we used to include a little bit of Himalayan sea salt that we pulled out of the younger product line because those parents who are super concerned about sodium, we wanted to pull those out. If we launch toddler foods in the future, which we might be, they might have some additional sodium added in.
So what do you guys think of the current guidelines for children? I don't know if there is like a standard US guidelines. I assume there is somewhere you can find it.
Yeah.
But like I know we went to the doctor and like at 4 months old they said start with rice cereal was the first recommendation. They tell you to introduce peanuts early on to like avoid allergies. A lot of stuff that seems dumb and wrong to me. And also, like, I look into the evidence, like science is sometimes thinly veiled as like we have this one little study that shows this one thing, like that's the peanut thing basically, and they just say it's science, and I'm like, maybe this is wrong. Kind of like the antibiotics ear infection thing, like you were saying. Like 20 years ago, we thought that was science, you know? So like, what are we wrong about now? But what do you disagree with the most, I guess, as far as the current baby food recommendations go, starting at like 6 months or so?
Well, there's a big discrepancy between what the USDA says and what the American Pediatric Association says. So the USDA just re-released their new infant nutrition guidelines, and they agree 100% with us. And in fact, they agreed previously with the previous guidelines agreed with us too.
They also put grains in there though.
They say no sugar. They're very big on low sugar. They say meat is really key, especially for the iron. They say fat is really key. They say vegetable oil is a good source of fat, which we don't agree with, but they do say all the good fats too, in terms of animal fats and dairy, and as well as good oils. But then the American Pediatric Association, for some reason, continues to recommend this fortified rice cereal as a first food, which they did finally say shouldn't be till 6 months. They took out
just a couple weeks ago.
Really recently, they were saying 4 to 6, and they've just now said now it's only 6.
And what is that fortified with?
Iron.
It's fake iron. It's synthetic iron.
Because iron, if you're breastfeeding, iron is the first nutrient that is really of concern, right?
But that's at 6 months, right? That you start to need supplementing.
Supposedly, I mean, we're not sure if that's even true. Like what I find about the Pediatric Association is like they treat baby and infancy like a disease. Like there's they approach everything like a medical condition that needs to be medicated, and they think infancy is a disease, and you need to give them these fortified iron as their prescribed medication for this problem of a lack of iron.
Or they think like if the iron's going down in the mother's milk, then that's bad.
Right.
What if
there must be something wrong, right? But probably there's a design that way. But obviously meat is the best source of iron, followed by green vegetables. So like iron, meat and green vegetables are key for iron for all humans, not just babies. And really babies need to be eating meat. And finally, the USDA guidelines came out and said that. But the Pediatric Association, for some reason, is behind. There's lots of pediatricians that are in both sides. There's ones like yours who are still saying 4 months that haven't learned the update, because a lot of doctors unfortunately don't have time or
and they
willingness.
Don't pay attention to diet.
Yeah,
right. A lot of doctors don't pay attention to diet.
It's not on their radar. So, but there are tons of pediatricians who are all about the meat and fat, liver, egg yolk, bone broth as first foods, which
those are hard to find.
Yeah,
they are hard to find, but you know what?
They're growing.
We had one that called us, and her name is Dr. Michelle Levitt. She is an obesity pediatrician. So her clients are as young as 18 months old. She starts treating obesity. Oh yeah, I know. I mean, heartbreaking. Almost makes me want to cry. And she is prescribing her patients diets like we eat. And it works. Yeah. So it's not only so the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. The keto, low carb, healthy fat pudding.
We find it to be generational. Like a lot of the younger, newer pediatricians are much more inclined to look at diet, much more up on actual nutrition. They understand the danger of sugar, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my whole theory is it's catastrophe avoidance. Like they just want to make sure your baby's getting calories. They don't care about like 3 to 4 years down the road what's happening with the baby. As long as it's alive, like that's their major goal. They just don't want dead babies. That's like a pediatrics major driving force.
Mm-hmm. And really, they don't care. I mean, pediatrician, how long do you have a pediatrician? 18 maximum years. They don't care what happens at year 19 or year 14 or whenever you start going to see a regular doctor. You know, that's part of how our medical system is totally broken.
So good question in chat here. What's the earliest babies can be introduced to meat? And maybe you could just kind of go through your opinion on introducing foods to babies, timelines, and like, do you give everything pureed? Do you give them like some
Baby
big cuts of meat? Like, what's the strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, our strong opinion is that nothing before 6 months, aside from mother's milk, if that's possible. You know, try to find a healthy formula if you need to. Get donor's milk, which we did, because I had low supply, and there's actually a lot of donor milk available.
So that is very frowned upon, right?
Yeah, it is.
In the medical community?
Donor milk? Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it worked out great for me. My cousin shipped it from Kentucky, you know, it was spectacular. My mom had to drive to get dry eyes and all this stuff, but it ended up working out great for our family. So introducing foods, you know, and we did a couple little tastes at 6 months, but honestly, Della wasn't even really wanting that at that point. We did start with a bone broth because, like I said, we were supplementing. We did end up supplementing with formula around, I think, 7 months or something like that. So I thought, well, shoot, if I'm feeding her, you know, a formula, then feeding her bone broth fortified with liver, which is what I ended up making her, is also super healthy and really good for her. But, you know, I think a lot of parents tend to feed their kids foods too early, and the kids' digestive tracts aren't always mature enough to be able to digest that. Meat, however, is actually weirdly one of the first foods that babies have all the digestive enzymes ready to digest. We are big fans. We did kind of a combo of baby-led weaning and then purees because we own a puree company, and that ended up working out okay for us. You know, but Della, man, I'll never forget. She was little bitty. She was sucking on these asparagus stalks, chewing on big pieces of meat. I mean, for her, it was fun. And, you know, there's that phrase, food before one is just for fun. And some kind of fringy, super crunchy mommy spaces. And so, you know, that a lot of nutrition, if possible, should keep coming from mom's milk. Meat is an ideal first food, heavy on the fats, you know. They're easier to digest than carbs. Vegetables in babies is, you know, it's good to get some vegetables in babies at some point. But the point might be farther along than we think. You know, it's actually really hard for them to digest fibers and get some of the nutrients out of vegetables, and particularly hard to digest vegetables. So waiting a little bit longer for some of those can be a good thing. And really, like, you know, using your intuition and following your baby's cues and following the diet that you know, eat yourself and have a really strong feeling about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, breast milk is an animal product, so their bodies are already able to process animal products better than any other kinds of foods. So that's why meat, bone broth, egg yolk, you know, some people do like salmon roe is very nutrient dense. Liver is a huge, super nutrient dense, a great source of iron. Those are really ideal first foods, even before vegetables and especially before grains. And as far as sugars go, like limit as sugar as much as possible. Like they don't ever really actually need fruit at all. You know, there's no vitamins in fruit that aren't in vegetables multiplied many times. So, you know, people kind of have this backwards where they're starting with fruit and veggies and they're waiting on meat. It's actually should be start with meat and then wait on fruit and vegetables and then delay grains as long as possible. For us, never, because we're paleo. But, you know, but like at least a year and a half, they say grains is when their body can start to process grains, but certainly not in infancy.
And then you may wonder, well, how can meat be a first food for someone who doesn't have many or any teeth? Mm-hmm. And really, you know, if you look into wilder cultures, less civilized, more awesome cultures, in my opinion, they pre-chew the meat, just like a mama bird. You know, the parents will pre-chew a little meat, give it to the baby, or baby-led weaning, just kind of let them suck on it, get the juices out and the different minerals. So there are different, you know, there's definitely very nutritious
I pre-chew
ways.
a lot, you know. Some other
lot.
tricks are like ground meat is pretty easy for them to eat, you know. Deli meat we use a lot now. She can pick up the like sliced turkey and eat it. Canned fish or like really soft fishes, like you cook up fish and she can eat pieces of fish or those like little shrimps. So she, you know, there's a lot of great ways to do finger food meats.
She loves crab.
Oh yeah, she's
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely. Well, I've done the pre-chewed meats, and Matt just. I think he is.
I'll let you do it.
He lets me do it, but he finds it very gross. And I'm like, the birds do that. Like, if other animals do this, like, this is so natural and normal. And he doesn't know the difference, and he's getting all the nutrients.
I find it interesting to see what foods he likes, because I know some babies really early on, they're introduced like sweet foods that then overrides their natural intuitions of like what they should go towards. So with Theo, he didn't really have that. So like he usually goes for meats, but there's certain things, like I would imagine if we just gave him like a few leaves of spinach, he would not even think it's really food, right? Like he wouldn't, I don't think he'd eat it. He might put it in his mouth. He puts everything in his mouth. That's another thing. But yeah, he generally progresses through his food in like a pretty predictable way. Yeah, like he eats the meat first, then he likes like berries and stuff, and then lastly, what does he eat last? Like kiwis and
we'll
random
throw kiwis
stuff.
on the ground.
Random stuff he doesn't really like that
but
much.
yeah, you brought up the spinach, and I think spinach it's in this pouch right here. It's one of the foods that you are like, we shouldn't feed Theo, right?
I was like, probably until he's a year old or so.
Because like,
that was my
when
thinking.
could they find this in nature and eat it?
So
what was your thinking when you were including certain fruits and vegetables? Or I guess just vegetables and meats? Were you like, let's just do everything across the board?
That's a little bit of it. I mean, the percentage of the greens is smaller in those for digestibility purposes. You know, we had a kind of a complex mixture of requirements. We needed to have the right macronutrient profile, super important. We wanted each pouch to be somewhat of a complete meal, at least, you know, macro-wise. And then we had to have a certain consistency to go through our equipment. Like we couldn't just run pureed cauliflower through there. They would separate, you know, they're not starchy enough. So we had to kind of combine some starchy veggies. We deliberated a lot on, should we make just, you know, plain sweet potato one or a plain carrot one? And we decided for our daughter, what we would like if we're gonna kind of bother with purees instead of other foods, you know, that I mean, she eats off our plates, right? She has for a very long time. But if we're going to kind of bother with purees, we wanted to do a mixture, and we decided to throw some greens into quite a few of our pouches in a kind of a small amount, because we know that they're good in general, nutrition-wise, particularly from a calcium and iron perspective, and hard for babies to chew.
There's also the taste factor that we want to introduce the flavors early of that bitter green flavor so that they learn to love it and eat a lot of that later in life. And it's all pressure cooked. So some of the issues with digestibility in greens are eliminated when you pressure cook it. So the small amount of spinach or kale that we use combined with the pressure cooking for us was more benefit than not. And for all those reasons, we decided to include it. But we do have plenty of flavors without that. If you want to wait till 8 months, 9 months, whatever, you know, that's totally up to you.
Yeah, and then you mentioned these are potentially a complete meal. So I don't know how much an 11-month-old should eat, like calorie-wise. I looked it up. I think it was like 950 to 1,200 calories. But I'm also nursing on demand, so I don't really know how much he's eating. So is one of these pouches, it's 80 calories, 90 calories, is that sufficient for a meal? Or is it like a supplement, like the beef pouch, for example?
It's really an impossible question to answer. It depends on the baby. It depends on their age. It depends on, like you said, how much milk they're getting. It depends on how much other foods they're getting. Weirdly, I think some baby girls eat a lot less than some baby boys, just from pure observation from friends and family. So to me, that seems like another differentiator. But for us, we, you know, weirdly, she didn't really like purees when she was, you know, 8 or 9, 10 months old. She's like, I just want real food. Now, crazy about pouches. I mean, like 6 months ago, we kind of added up how many we had fed her in a day, and I'm like, oh well, I fed her 2. Oh crap, I fed her 3. I think she's had like 9 today. So we're like, okay, we have
She'll
to stop
eat as many
this.
as we let her eat at this point.
She needs to be eating real food, chewing, like you said, working on her hand-eye coordination, working on her mouth development, her tongue and lips and all that stuff for speech purposes and all kinds of other purposes, But so really we have to, now we use them mostly as snacks. Although she is getting her last 2-year-old molars on top right now.
Oh yeah.
And food when she teeth. She just wants to drink goat milk all day, and so I'm like, okay, have a couple pouches, and she just doesn't want to eat food that she has to chew, which makes total sense to me.
So when did you guys introduce like nuts and nut butters?
We probably, she started eating nuts, I would say 6 months ago, so she was probably 18 months old.
So she was like able to chew them herself.
Yeah.
It wasn't super strategic though. It was just sort of like she can chew it. We didn't really.
I was pretty scared of her choking on. Well, we had tried to give them to her earlier, and she just kind of spit them out. She'd sort of mush them around and spit them out. We're not big nut butter eaters.
Yeah.
So in fact, I just was looking in our cabinets. I think they've all gone bad.
I gave her some. She liked it okay, but we weren't.
So you didn't do like the early introduction thing. They say like 6 months, give them some kind of peanut puffs or something.
She had, there was something, I think it was your mom that gave her peanut butter on something. No, almond butter. His mom gave her almond butter on something when she was maybe 9 or 10 months old. And I was like, what's happening? Is this okay?
Tree nuts.
But she was fine. And I thought,
I didn't realize that people do this. Like we took Theo to our neighbors and he's like, can you have French fries? And he was like 9 months old.
We're like,
and I was like, no, why would we give our baby French fries? Like.
And then she was like, Dad said no. And it's like, Dad's not the police here, okay? He shouldn't be eating the fries.
Right,
it's just like the person giving it to them feels good. Like they just want them to enjoy and be happy.
Yeah,
it's scary how many babies get fed dessert, like cakes and donuts. Because like that same thing, they want to share. They want to, make the baby feel good. And like it's like really problematic to give kids.
What did you guys do for the first birthday?
We're talking about
I listened to your podcast, and I wanted to share with you what we did. I should have brought it up, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So when we took an avocado, we cut it in half, turned it upside down, stuck it on a plate.
Pulled the skin off, so it was like a hump of avocado.
Yeah. We stuck a raspberry on top, put a candle through it, and gave that to her.
Okay, so you guys are more hardcore than us.
Tore it up. My sister was not having that, so she made this elaborate.
She
carved like a fruit veggie
watermelon cake.
Watermelon with like beets, and we'll send you a picture. It was really beautiful.
She said, what can I use for frosting? I'm like, no frosting. She said, how about plain yogurt? I was like, okay.
Goat's milk yogurt.
So she decorated it with plain yogurt, and like stuck on, blueberries and raspberries and strawberries. And Della had a blast with it. She sat there just like eating watermelon. It was the perfect thing for her.
Yeah.
Like that.
See, I was thinking I'd make him some kind of cake with like coconut flour and something kind of sweet.
There's lots of great like cassava, coconut flour.
Yeah.
I did one. So my best friend turned 50 a few years ago, and he was in this kick where he was eating no sweeteners. So not even like applesauce or stevia or anything like that. And I'm like, I want to make my cake. What am I going to do? So I made him, you were there. I made him a pumpkin cake with, he would eat fruits or like vegetables with apple butter, just cooked down apples smeared over the top with no sweetener in there. But I added quite a bit of spices, nutmeg and cinnamon and ginger. And then I put pecans on top. And it was actually decent.
Yeah.
It wasn't sweet, really. It looked like a cake, smelled like a cake.
But it was
put candles in
dessert-like.
it.
Yeah.
But it was decadent. And I fed it to lots of other people who didn't really know this was the plan. And they're like, oh, this is great. I thought, go figure.
So are there ingredients in baby foods that you 100% avoid? Like what would be the top couple?
Grains is probably the top one.
Grains?
Yeah.
Sugar.
Any sugar, or to us, sweet tasting even. Now she'll eat some berries and stuff. But for us, like, the flavor window is really important. That it's basically 4 months to a year and a half. The foods they eat are what they're going to want to eat for the rest of their life, is basically the research shows. And so like the less sugar you have during that time, the more likely they are to eat a more well-rounded diet later. So obviously inflammatory stuff, of the grains, gluten being the one that we've been like the most militant about avoiding.
I don't think she's had any.
I doubt that she's ever had any gluten. She's probably had a little bit of rice, something or other here and there, but very small, a little bit of oat maybe.
Yeah, I even tried to feed her oatmeal a little
tiny bit of
but
corn, but we avoid grains, corn included. Dairy, she has.
Oh, dairy.
She's a little bit of a reaction to cow's dairy. So goat dairy, she seems to be okay with. We imagine she'd be all right with A2 milk, but we haven't tried that since she's okay with goat.
We just really feed her goat milk. We don't feed her cheese or.
Yeah, I tried to give her some
cheese at all.
No,
I tried to give her some chivery. She didn't like it. She was like, she spit out the goat chivery. She was not a fan.
Yeah, we've done raw cream. I did that 2 days ago.
Well, we did make some formula for him out of raw milk
raw
too.
milk, yeah, and
It
really
seemed
well
like
with
it was fine.
Yeah. So we followed Weston A. Price a lot. For my pregnant diet as well.
Great.
Yeah.
And vegetable oils. I think that would be like the top thing I want him to avoid.
Yeah.
And gluten, I guess.
Industrial seed oils, we call them. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. Is that in a lot of baby foods?
No, but there's not fat at all. So, it's not a lot of the purees.
It isn't a lot of the box
when you get into snacks, is where you start to see oils and cane sugar
and formula.
And formula too.
Yeah.
A lot of oil of cane oil and syrups and formulas.
Thinking about it now, there's probably a lot of babies. Maybe this generation has passed a little bit, but like early 2000s, you could probably go till the age of 1 or 2 years old without getting really much animal fats at all. Like maybe the little bit you have, but they're feeding them lean chicken breasts and lean meats, I would imagine, a lot of the time. So kids are barely getting any animal fats whatsoever until they're a few years old.
Yeah.
Super tragic. And the result is 1 in 4 is diagnosed obese, 1 in 5 is diabetic or pre-diabetic, 1 in 5 is diagnosed with some kind of mental or emotional disorder before the age of 16. And the stats go on about the health crisis we have in our country with children, and it's starting in infancy.
Have we rounded the bend a little bit on that, or are we still just trending upwards?
I think we're trending, vegan babies are dime a dozen these days. Unfortunately.
Yeah. At least that's effort, though. It's misplaced effort, but at least they're trying.
Yeah.
Well,
it's hard to say if it's getting worse or not. I don't know.
So selfishly, our business is doing well. So people are buying it and babies are eating it, and that
great.
All the stress of having a company while you have a baby and married to your business partner, which is hard, it all makes it worth it, knowing that babies are eating our food and instead of eating something junkier.
We hope that going to Whole Foods and seeing, one of the reasons we put the animals so loud on the packaging was to educate parents that meat is important. And we hope that just by seeing it at Whole Foods, they're oh, meat's on the baby aisle, I guess I should feed my baby meat. Because so many people like that listener don't know that when can babies eat meat is a really common question. And we love trying to tell everybody as soon as they eat food, feed meat and lots of it.
Yeah, it's funny because the idea you have of a baby eating its first food is you give it a spoonful of peas and it hates it, and you're oh, haha, babies.
And then you just shove it into their mouth. Force feeding is a big thing.
It's normalized that babies aren't supposed to like food. Of course they should like food.
I know. It's
right?
Yeah. They're not able to listen to their own hunger cues. When Theo's done, he's very adamant about being done now. He hands over his bottle, or he just he's get out of my face. But I know so many moms probably are just putting the spoon in the mouth. I've seen it, and it makes me feel so bad for the baby.
Yeah. It is.
It's so easy to stress out about food and feeding baby.
Yeah.
And and we've had to done a lot of work on this for ourselves. We all, is she eating enough? Is she eating the right things? Trying to bribe her to eat more meat or whatever, right? And it's just we listen to Janet Landberry's Unruffled podcast, and she talks a lot about how natural eating is for a child, and if you take away the pressure and the fear and all the stuff, they will just eat as much as they need when they need to, and then be done. And you don't actually have to worry about it. But it's way easier said than done.
And if you don't taint their palate with hyperpalatable engineered foods, then they actually do make really healthy choices.
They crave the right foods.
Yeah, I've also found that to be the case. So now when Theo eats lunch, it's usually in the kitchen and like a little seat, and I just like do the dishes around him, I clean up around him, and he does his own thing. And I find that when I'm standing and watching him, he eats less, and he'll just eat on his own. Yeah. So
he likes to play and like just get in his own. It's fun when the baby gets in a zone, you know, when they just like don't know what's happening around them.
Yeah, it's fun.
It doesn't last very long.
We found something similar that Della, because we were kind of hovery, we actually started just leaving the room, and I'm sitting there listening right around the corner, like making sure she's not choking or doesn't need anything. But she would actually, she wants to play with us when we're there. She's got our attention. Yeah. That's a different experience, that she's like socializing with us instead of just focusing on her meal. So we would just start leaving. In fact, I did that yesterday. She was goofing around or complaining a bunch, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk away and leave this right here. And I walked away, came back, she's just eating up the storm.
Yeah.
There is something magical about watching your baby when they don't know that you're watching them.
Yeah.
It's like one of the great experiences, I feel like.
We just taught her about the baby monitor. We ended up getting a low EMF video baby monitor. And now she can say, monitor, monitor. And, I kind of showed her, she could see her stuffed animals in there. And I was like, it's right up here. And so now when she's in the crib, she'll look up and she's like, Mama!
She'll like talk to us.
So she knows that we're watching her on that, I'm like, I hope that doesn't freak her out. I don't know.
That's funny. How do you feel about the timeline for breastfeeding? I know some people, or maybe this time has passed also, but it used to be more fashionable to do it like exclusively for a year. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably where we can agree is not the best anymore.
I would,
but like, you would?
No,
I think
wouldn't.
By the time they go to college,
exclusively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I had supply, I would have kept nursing till now. Yeah. She's almost 2, but I would have kept feeding her food. I mean, she's starting to like, I don't know. Our philosophy is
6 months exclusively, if possible. Yeah. And then as much as you can. I mean, really, it's the best. It's such good food, even in small amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so breastfeeding as long as possible. If it was me, we would have been like 3-4 years old, whatever. Serenity probably wouldn't have agreed to that. But Della, for whatever reason, weaned herself really early at 9 months. And, that was just what she did. We don't know why.
Yeah.
But letting the baby lead there, seems to be pretty natural.
For us, like I said, she wasn't really into baby food when she was 6-7 months old. By month 8 and 9, she started caring more and like really consuming food. She kind of just goofed around with it before that. And so for me, I don't know. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have just a ton of supply. And can you sustain a baby for that long just on breast milk?
For a whole year? I haven't even heard that, the idea of just
I have heard
year.
it.
Like that sounds pretty intense.
I've heard of it.
I've heard the food before Joanne just for fun, which means breastfeed primarily, and then the food they get, don't worry about maximizing calories. Mm-hmm. Like let them eat, but like most of their nutrition is still coming from breast milk.
Yeah, I don't know much about. I don't know anyone who's ever done that.
Yeah.
No, neither. I mean, I don't think I can handle it myself. Like breastfeeding just like round the clock a lot, and food was just fun. But then I think around like 10 months he like started pushing me away and like pulling the food closer, which is fun. And then Joe, you mentioned like 4 years of age, and I feel like that would be normal, but I've seen 4-year-olds recently and they're just like little grown men. So that almost feels like, should I be doing it at 4 years?
We saw a video of like 12-year-olds too.
Yeah,
right?
12-year-olds breastfeeding. And like the husband even partakes in the breastfeeding. So
yeah. So that was just like a weird family. So
but now
see the YouTube channels you guys are watching.
It kind of ruined me for like 4-year-olds even, because I mean even at Dallas 2, and she's like running around, right?
Oh yeah, she's talking and she's
Because you get some diminishing returns, right? At the point when they can consume enough food to like really replace the breast milk, then they're better off just eating the food. It's just like a more efficient process.
There's a comfort, there's a psychological comfort.
Right.
And there is nutrition. I mean, it is, the breast milk's magic. Like it matches the nutritional needs of the child. Like
particularly with illness.
It like reads the
probiotics.
saliva, goes through the nipple to like inform the body what to make. And if they're sick, it'll create more antibodies. Like it's crazy how magical breast milk is. So I can see benefits even from like a supplemental, like you and I take a DHA supplement or something, like they would take a little breast milk. But in the end, I think it's about the relationship between the mom and the kid, and there's a lot of intuition there and experimentation.
Yeah. Okay. Someone in chat says, Matt, you hate green shade, just green vegetables. Do you plan to feed your boy them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in moderation. In moderation, not like super
broccoli.
High amounts. Yeah, I love broccoli though. I just hate like leafy green vegetables, I guess.
I mean, he's not going to eat romaine lettuce. That would be so stupid.
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge pro to eating leafy green vegetables, but like in moderation, in small amounts, I think trying a bunch of different stuff is good. Yeah. But I don't ever foresee myself like giving him a spinach salad and being just like, go to town, son. Because also, I'm realizing, I didn't like do the math. Now I'm realizing he's 11 months old. He eats like 1,100 calories. I would imagine, I never looked it up, but when you're like 18, athletic, you must eat like, what, like 3,000-4,000 calories a day. So like you're going to be spending $10-$20 a day on spinach if you're trying to feed him with spinach. So like it doesn't really make a ton of sense. But I'll probably feed him some leafy green vegetables, just sparingly would be the answer there.
Okay.
And, I love leafy greens. From a paleo perspective, I've been foraging with some foragers locally.
Oh.
And a lot of what you find is greens. I mean, that's one of the more common things that's edible are leaves that you either eat raw or boil down. So, and the fiber is like really rich in those. So, like from a paleo perspective, leafy greens are pretty common for the human diet. But different people have different preferences. I'm a pretty big salad eater. I can devour I like how much I can eat of it. I can eat like a huge salad with meat. And it's like, and then I can still eat more.
Della, I don't think she's ever, I mean, she's like you said, she's stuck some leaves in her mouth.
Yeah, she'll chew on a piece of lettuce.
She really likes, raw carrot sticks or
she'll eat cucumbers. She'll eat a raw cucumber. She really likes. She ate a whole garden cucumber. By the time we got over the garden, the whole thing it was like huge.
So I've heard this idea. Maybe you know this since you're a forager. A lot of the greens, like if you find them in the wild, are really bitter, and the bitterness has been like bred out of all the greens we consume now. So like bitterness isn't really even a taste we get that much anymore, and it's like great for digestion and stuff. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, and and there's different ways of seasoning and cooking to cut that down, or soaking or whatever. But yeah, like ultimately, I actually really like bitter flavors. I think part of my wildness is how much I love bitter. Like I love like 100% dark chocolate and like really dark coffee. I've always been a stout drinker. I'm like the more bitter, like kick me in the head, bitter. Love that stuff. But I think you're probably right that we're wired to have a lot of bitter flavors that we've been, the sugar is the opposite, right? We've been tainted towards sweet instead of that. Really yummy bitter.
as far as herbals go, a lot of herbs are bitter and a lot of medicines are bitter for that reason. So in the wild, we would eat a lot of herbs and greens for medicinal purposes. They help with detoxing. The liver is like Joe's working on some detoxing right now, and he's like, all right, I got to start eating more greens and green powders and whatever I can kind of get in there to help with those processes. So they can be really nutrient dense and not necessarily in giant quantities. It's not like the same quantity you would eat of a carb. It would be
supplemental,
unless you're not keto, which I see with the keto people. So
yeah,
maybe not a lot of friends, but you would eat smaller quantities of the very bitter things. Is what I'm saying.
So as Della ages, what kind of sweeteners are you going to allow her to consume? Is it just like honey and like maple syrup and more natural type of ones? And what has she already had?
You know what the newest sugar is? Dates. This is like
the new.
Yeah, well, it's kind of new. In the last 5 years, all these things are sugar-free, but then I look and it's just made of entirely dates.
RX bar, oh my God, makes me so I hate dates.
Yeah. We don't do a lot of dates because this guy doesn't like them very much. Although if I blended it up, he probably wouldn't even know.
He wouldn't know. Yeah.
But Sweeteners, you know, she's had a little like. Have you guys seen those Koya keto drinks? They're like meh. Or you know.
I think I've seen them.
Yep, we've tried
Yeah,
it.
they're okay. And so she's had those like on occasion, or we like mix it in with her milk for her special thing if she's not drinking her vitamins or whatever that we put in there.
She loves berries. Berries
Yeah,
are
she does
her
love
favorite
berries.
treat.
So,
You know, is like a raspberry or blueberry or strawberry.
Right now.
You know, so we limit those, and it's used as a treat. It's not a common thing. But otherwise, you know, I mean, we eat
Monk fruit, stevia.
monk fruit, stevia are the common ones. Serenity and I eat.
Maple syrup, honey.
Occasionally, those two. Occasionally, some erythritol, but probably would be pretty small amount for her. Like I'd be more conscious of erythritol for her than I am for me.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed is I'm heavily conscious of giving him erythritol. We haven't given it to him.
I don't think I ever want to. I mean,
I don't think
we don't really consume it as much anymore either. So.
Right. Really. Oh, go ahead.
I made these little cheesecakes with like collagen powder and gelatin and cashews, you know, soaked cashews and cacao, and there was a little bit of maple syrup, and I put a little bit of monk fruit in there, and I've been sharing them with her.
She loves those.
On
Yeah, she's
occasion.
gobbling those up.
She's gobbling those up.
Yeah.
You got anything else? We're winding down here.
No, I wanted to talk about the new flavors because I see that they're already on your site though. The turkey and bison, I believe.
Yes.
So I'd like to try everything before Theo eats it, and like me and Theo together could not. You know, we didn't love the salmon, I'll be honest. The chicken and the beef he loves, but I'm excited about the turkey and the bison. So
Theo doesn't like the salmon?
No, but that's okay.
Feed it a cat.
Yeah, oh, that's a good idea. Or our dog. So yeah, so talk about the new flavors a little.
Well, we wanted to extend our line, and we knew we've known we wanted to add turkey and bison for 4 years, you know, for a very long time. But we had to be conscious about how much energy it took to launch a new product. So really we launched the turkey and the bison last fall, and they're kind of our heritage breed combo. You know, we went with pasture-raised turkeys from South Georgia, and we went with bison that's raised just down, you know, an hour way down here in Fredericksburg, Texas. And we really wanted to highlight different meat options for variety is one of the main reasons. We wanted to give parents and kids a wide variety of different ridiculously healthy meat choices. And then the combos.
Introduce new flavors. So turkey has its own flavor, bison has its own flavor. And then the farm sourcing was awesome. I mean, the regenerative farms that we found, you know, turkeys from the White Oak Pastures farm in Georgia, where they're, you know, it's a multi-species regenerative farm where they're sequestering carbon and revitalizing their local economy and creating super nutritious meat. And so we always wanted to get some of their products in turkey. They had some really great heritage breed pasture-raised turkeys. And then the bison is actually raised by the former founders of Epic Bar, who were a big inspiration for us and big advisors for us in starting the company. We use their same branding. If anybody notices, our pouches look kind of like Epic Bars.
Yeah.
You know, we use their same brand person to do our branding. And when we actually first started, they said, don't make a bison. There's like, it's really hard to find good grass-fed, grass-finished bison. So don't compete with us, basically. And then by the time we were ready, they had actually created a bison ranch, and like we're raising bison, and now we're buying the bison from them. And they've like, in the 2 years, they bought completely ruined land. Like it was dead, brown.
Couldn't grow one little sprout.
Everything was dead, and now it's like lush green.
Very high.
And all they did was bring bison on and graze them in a strategic way. Like, you know, they just like used the bison to revitalize the land.
They have it's
They have a
multi-species
few other species
operation.
too. Yeah,
they have turkeys, they have
5
chickens,
species.
they have pigs.
Right. So they did the multi-species thing with bison being like the main contributor to the acreage that they've restored. And so we love telling that story, and we love the nutrition of those meats in addition to the ecosystem that it's regenerating. And we got lots more coming. So stay tuned. We got several coming out this fall, and then more coming out next winter. So, you know, we'll definitely let you guys be early testers.
Yeah, let us know when you got the puffs developed.
Matt wants to be a taste tester.
Yeah.
Awesome. So where can everyone find you?
We have a website, myserenitykids.com. It's where we have the best deals and really great. You can get 20% off by subscribing.
You're in some stores too, it looks
We're
like.
in lots of stores. You can at the website. You can also use y'all's discount code, which you guys will tell them about. We're also on Amazon and Thrive Market, and then we're at a lot of stores nationwide, including all Whole Foodses and all Sprouts stores. So if you have either of those, we're also in a lot of regional chains. We have a store locator on our website, along with a little digital coupon you can print and bring in the store for an in-store coupon. So check that out. And
Facebook and Instagram at My Serenity Kids.
Yep, like us, follow us. We have lots of content like this that we share.
We put out a video on all the mistakes we made potty training. So,
new parent hacks, all these tips and tricks that we've learned from being new parents. So follow us there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Joe and Serenity.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great to be here.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. That's the interview, Serenity Kids.
And Keto Connect gets you 15% off.
Keto Connect is the coupon code.
Keto Connect, yeah. But yeah, check them out.
Have you found these in stores?
I haven't looked. I didn't know that they were in Whole Foods.
Because it looks like they're in about 20 stores near us. So.
Yeah, so next time we go to Whole Foods, I will definitely be getting some.
Yeah, it's surprisingly hard, I guess. I haven't looked. You do all the looking, but it's hard to find good baby food.
Yeah, but now we know.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging.
We'll see you next time.
Actually, tomorrow we have an interview,
tomorrow
right?
we have an interview.